Now let's move to this story now. Stage 6 load shedding has returned, but not without warning, of course. The electricity minister repeating yesterday that it was going to be an extremely tough winter regarding power supply. Eskom also warning that the levels of power cuts could change at short notice if breakdowns occur at power stations or demand surges. Well, let's speak now to energy expert Ted Blom. Good evening, Ted. Thanks so much for joining us. Stage 6, I suppose, no real surprise.
No, absolutely not. If you look at Eskom's yearly outlook, it did indicate a respite last month, which we experienced, and everybody thought it was the holy grail and that load shedding would be something of the past. But if you follow through on the yearly outlook, they were due to go to level 6 or higher at the start of winter, which is now. And in fact, I'm on record as it early on this year and late last year, of forecasting that we got a good chance of hitting level 8 load shedding before the end of April.
Oh, my word. And end of April, of course, is still not officially really winter. I mean, how much worse do you think it could get, Ted, or is that just really impossible to say?
It's really very difficult to say. And what I have noticed is it seems to me that Eskom's running on much thinner margins, and that's why they've been able to ameliorate the level of load shedding over the last month or two since the new energy minister has taken over. What he doesn't seem to realize, this is a very dangerous game. If you cut the safety margins, you more than double the probability of a grid meltdown. And this is something that seems to me the people at Megawatt Park have forgotten since they've had a change in management, or just never realized from the get-go. But they're now tempting disaster.
Talk to me about that safety margin. What is it normally? What is it meant to be? What exactly is it?
Okay, so ceteris paribus, which is I'm sure the term that you've come across in your studies, everything else being equal, your safety margin should be 15% of your demand. So if we have a 30,000 megawatt demand, we should have a safety measure of at least 1.5 to 2,000 megawatts as a margin. Eskom, as I said, is now running at half of that. And the problem is, if you halve that, you get to 750 megawatts. And we've got units bigger than 750 megawatts. In fact, all the Kusile and the Medupi units are all bigger than 750 megawatts. So the moment you trip one of those while you're running on a so-called thinned out safety margin, you will melt the grid if the operators aren't fast enough to dump load like super quick in a flash. If they've gone to the bathroom, it's overs cadavers.
That's worrying that they seem to be cutting it really fine. I want to ask your views, Ted, on the impact that the new electricity minister is having. Some concern, I spoke to Prof. Mark Swilling yesterday, others are also voicing this view, that he seems to be almost trying to re-examine the position on old coal-fired power stations, suggesting that we perhaps move away from already set targets for decommissioning these coal-fired power stations. Not that we're not going to have coal in our lives for many, many years to come, but the thinking behind decommissioning these old ones is that it's extremely expensive to refurbish them and is simply not worth the money. And, of course, money we don't have. Are you sensing that the electricity minister is trying to overturn the apple cart a little around already agreed targets, or do you think he's just being open to all options?
Well, firstly, I think he's being swamped from which direction you can think of. And that's normal with a new appointee. I've seen that many times in my career, from when I still had hair to now. Secondly, I mean, I think that you've got to be really stupid or really brave to switch off capacity in the middle of a massive load shedding disaster. So that's the background. Thirdly, you need to be careful what your sources are. It seems to me that all the sources of so-called the exorbitant cost and the exorbitant damage caused by coal, it comes from the renewable sector. And yet we are spending 25% plus of Eskom's budget buying in renewable power for less than 6% contribution. If that isn't expensive, then I don't know what is. No. I think reality needs to come to the table, and these renewable people need to just shut up. because they are trying to create. If Minister Mantashe wants to open his mouth about causing instability, he needs to attack the renewable sector, because they're the ones who are causing dissonance in this country. They're the ones who are throwing coal out with the bathwater. They're the ones who are saying that we must switch off regardless and rely on non-dispatchable, irregular renewable energy, which cannot keep the lights on as we sit here now, because there's very little wind going on at the moment, and there's absolutely no solar. So, I mean, it's all fine to say we must throw out all the baddies, but if you've got no replacement on the table, then I think you are misleading the population.
Yeah, but Ted, everything I've read is not throwing out coal overnight. That coal's going to be in our lives for decades to come. That there's an acceptance that we have to have a reliance on coal. The concern is that the already agreed targets to shut down very old, past their sell-by date coal-fired power stations makes economic sense. It would be much more expensive than bringing that new energy, alternative energy on board. And that's the concern. Not that we're going to throw coal out tomorrow. That's simply not feasible. I don't think anyone is saying that. I think the concern, Ted, is the minister potentially creating renewed uncertainty about our policy on our just energy transition. And let's not forget, Ted, that our position, our transition away from dirty coal, which we know costs lives, makes people sick, we have a lot of pledges that we're just not going to get if we don't continue with this policy as well.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think we are between a rock and a hard place, and we were manipulated there by the renewable sector, again, offering big bribes to the president and everybody else who's prepared to open his pockets. And the fact of the matter is, Sally, what the people are not telling you is that the renewable energy, they start the number of 45 to 60 cents a kilowatt hour. But that's only when it's available. They're not telling you what the cost is of non-served or unserved electricity, which is 90 Rand, 100 Rand a kilowatt hour. So it's fine to say I'm throwing in all my money at the 60 cents, the cheap boys, or the 45 cents, which is a real bottom-based bargain, and I'm prepared to switch the lights off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and to hell with the economy, and to hell with the mining sector, and to hell with anybody else who needs power, which is not available with the intermittent, unreliable, non-dispatchable renewable sector. I mean, one needs to measure apples against apples and pears against pears. You can't come in and say, listen here, I've got a box of matches here. It cost me 1 cent. I'm going to make some electricity or light with this box of matches. And you forget to tell the people that it's only going to last for 10 or 20 seconds, and then it's all over. And then
yeah, but at the same time, Ted, I have to interject, because we know that baseload argument is a little bit of a myth, because we are seeing ongoing efforts and huge amounts of battery storage for renewables. So, I mean, I think we could probably have this discussion another time. I do have to ask you for more details on what you've just said, because it's quite a serious allegation that you've just made. You said that the president has been offered big bribes by the renewables. I think I cannot let that go unchallenged. You have to give me details. What are you talking about? Where's the evidence? Who have you given it to? Have you spoken to the police?
I don't have to refer to anybody. It's on YouTube, and it came out of the mouth of nobody less than Mr. Biden, who offered $8.5 billion for South Africa.
That's not a bribe. That's not a bribe. That's a pledge to move our country to renewable energy for the improvement of the planet. Have I missed something?
Well, I mean, of course, 90% of people say it's not a bribe. Call it an incentive. Call it what you want.
But I think be careful there, Ted, with making allegations like that.
Joe Biden went ahead and said he's done a deal with the president for early closure of our coal power stations, and that will make space for the renewables. And seemingly that money is hanging between here and New York, because I don't know if it's arrived here yet or hasn't arrived. I heard some of it's arrived. But the bottom line is a poorly placed incentive to take people up the wrong path is nothing short of a bribe.
So do you think that staying with coal as long as possible is the right path?
No, absolutely not, Sally. But the fact of the matter is you can't jump into a technology that doesn't supply the answers. As I said to you, I can come to you with a box of matches and offer you power or a light at 1 cent for 10 seconds. But that's not a viable option. So let the people put viable options on the table, let them be properly evaluated, and then we go with whatever is the right choice.
All right.
But I'm telling you again, Switching off in the middle of a load shedding disaster is suicidal. It's causing instability, it's causing lots of dissonance, and it's killing jobs.
All right. Thank you so much for your views. Really appreciate it. Energy expert Ted Blom there. We've got more news.